Hello, in this lecture we will take a look at yet another use case of components in Blazor, and in this case we will have a pure client-side application which basically generates sales items. Okay, so you can create a new item, add new item, and then you can remove them as well. So the end result will be what you can see in this browser. As you can see, we have it already launched, and there is a little button, add new. If I click that, new listing, okay, pops up, new sales item, and I can enter a name, I can enter a price and a discount. So if I enter, say, 50 as a price, okay, this is an on change event, you will see that later. You see, I get a total and then a grand total on the top. Okay, that's how I do it, and I can do a 10% discount like that. Then the total is 45, and then the total is 45 as well in the top. If I add another item like that, as you can see right here, another item I have, I can add a price. Again, let's do 50. This one has no discount, so as you can see, the total is 95. The total is 95. Now if I go back right here, I add 10% discount. As you can see, the total of this item is 45 and the grand total is 90. So this is our goal, and let's take a look at how the program is made. Go to Visual Studio. First of all, again, this is client side only. This is client side only. So let's take a look. We have data models, actually just one model, but we do want to separate the models in some way, in some form. So we create a folder for models. Usually I would suggest doing a folder for models, general models folder, and then in that folder you should separate them in different folders for perhaps each different part of your application. Again, it depends on the size of your application. If it's a single page, couple of models, one model, you don't need to go through all that process. But no matter what you do, I would suggest creating a folder for models. Okay, so we have our sales item model, and then pages, we just have our index in which the list is displayed, and then we have our sales item component. That's it, that's all we have. Now we will take a look at the sales item model. This is where we start from. This is the most important part of the application. Okay, our sales model is right here. So this one is kind of interesting and kind of intriguing, and it might be a little bit difficult if you haven't used C# in this kind of a way. Okay, so you don't have to really understand this, but this is kind of useful to know and sometimes even use it. Okay, so first of all, of course, we have string item ID, string names, double price, and double discount. This is the general stuff. And then finally, we have double total. But as you can see, there's something more in this particular item of this model. Now again, so you might be familiar with this. If you're not, I want to explain this a bit. Basically, when you have this little lambda expression right here near the total, there's a little lambda expression. What it means, whenever any one of these variables change in this model, the whole calculation will be re-evaluated and then assigned to this total variable. Okay, so it's not meant to be assigned directly, it's not meant to be set directly, it's not meant to be assigned directly. It's meant to just sit there and basically depend on all the other items that belong to this particular calculation. Now you can do some other things as well. You can do link and all that other stuff, but in this case we just do a simple calculation. This is to calculate the price minus the discount. As you can see, we have discount. Again, we do check for zeros because you can't divide from 0. Okay, you can't divide. So we do check for that. We do check for that. And this is what we get, just so that we don't get an error. This is very useful. Again, in data models, this is really useful. If you have some calculation that doesn't need to be assigned but does depend only on the other variables in the model, this is very useful to use. And it's quite easy to use. You just do some name, then equals this more or less sign, little lambda expression, right? And then you just do your whole calculation like that. Very easy to do, and again, very useful to do. Just don't overuse it. Just don't overuse it. Keep it simple with these things. Okay, so this is our model. This is our sales item that we will create. Now, if we go to index.razor, our main page, we can see that we have a little button, add new, and add new executes add new item method, task method, right? So that one basically adds sales items to the list. It creates a new GUID, a new ID for the item, just like that. And right here in this div, we have sales item component, and sales item component takes in some stuff. We'll take a look at that inside the actual component. Now, one thing to note is that in this case, as you can see, I have a div and I have bootstrap class. I have a bootstrap class. This one is row, and then in the sales item component we will have columns. So let's go into that, and as you can see, this might be a bit complicated. So as a parameter, first of all, we take in that new item. And as you can see, the parameter does have to have getters and setters. It has to be public, of course. It has to be with the parameter attribute, but it can also be pre-assigned. In case you may not provide, perhaps in some cases, although in this case we do provide that always. So this is not very useful, that assignment, but I just want to show you that it is indeed possible and there's nothing to be afraid of here. Okay, so besides that, that only provides the ID, right? It only provides the ID. We have our callbacks. So we have a callback on name change, we have a callback on price change, and then we have a callback on discount change. Finally, we have a callback for remove on remove. So on remove simply sends the item ID, and then if we go back to the index, see where it ends up, and it ends up right here, remove item. You see, it simply searches the list, sales items list, and it removes the item with that particular ID. Very simple, very straightforward, but very effective indeed. Okay, so the next one, let's see, sales items component. As you can see, the other ones have on name change, on price change, on discount change, and they are string double or on name change string. So it's a key value pair. I would say this is the most common way to actually achieve this kind of dealing with a list in the parent page. Okay, with a list in the parent page, parent component, from these callbacks in the child component. Okay, because you do need some kind of an ID. Okay, you do need an ID for that particular component in the list, and then you can put in any other stuff you want in the value of the key value pair. Obviously in this case we have string and double, but it could be any kind of a model, any kind of an object. So that's how we deal with that, and all that stuff happens right here in the inputs. As you can see, we have on change, these are quite long but quite simple as well. So first of all, what we need to do, we need to actually assign. We need to assign these values to this local model. We want to assign it to the local model. We do need some place to assign them anyways, and this model, this object is just laying around, so we use it for a good purpose, right? We do that, we assign them to that, just like that. Now the next thing we do, as you can see, we invoke our event callbacks with invoke async. We do take an argument, okay, as you can see, args, that's from onChange event, and onChange event, as you can see, have arguments value. Where we need doubles, we convert to double. Where we need string, we convert to string. Very simple indeed, but again, it does take quite a bit of time to actually accomplish. It may look simple, but it does take quite a bit of time to accomplish, especially if you would have more details, more data that you need to provide, more callbacks, and perhaps some pushes to the child element from the parent element. So it can get quite complicated, but don't get discouraged. There really is no better way to do it, to accomplish this. It is a lot more efficient than some more old-fashioned methods, okay? So this is how we do that. And of course on remove we already seen that. And as you can see, also in the total we have this item total. So if you remember, we had a model with a little lambda expression where it gets calculated. As you can see, we simply assign those values to our model. So we have price, we have discount, and once they get assigned, this total gets re-evaluated and then redisplayed, okay, and then we see the total. Now for the grand total, we do need to somehow display that, but as you can see, we don't have any particular callback. And the way that works, we simply on these changes, we change the value in one of the objects from this list, okay, associated with that particular ID. And again, as you can see, we just make those changes. For this object, and this object again makes that same calculation and reevaluates it. And finally, once we have that number, we can go to the top, and as you can see, we have total, colon, and then we have sales items and sum. Sum comes from the link, okay, it comes from the link. And as you can see, we sum up the X total, our total values. So this is how it works. And of course, we have all those callbacks assigned in the sales item component. We provide this item, which is that particular item, just like that. Again, it may look quite straightforward. It really isn't that straightforward, but don't get discouraged by any of these pieces of this rather complex puzzle. It is quite easy to do once you get used to that. And what I would suggest to you is just to get some practice. First of all, what you should do, you should take this piece of code. It is provided in resources. You should take this and you should add another value. Just to get used to this kind of stuff, just to get used to these callbacks. Just add another value to your model. Okay, go start with a model, create another value. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a number, if it's not a number. Okay, just create another value, see if it works. And also, what I would suggest is making another calculation after that. Okay, another calculation. Perhaps add a tax. A tax would be an interesting thing, okay, on that particular one. And then display the total tax rather. Okay, so again, the important thing is for you to play around with this, get used to it. there is nothing really specific that you can learn. Okay, there's no specific task, but you do need to kind of figure out those best ways to use them. Use the components, to use these callbacks, to use all the parameters. And as you can see, I have shown you a sort of a decent structure to get you started. And now it's all in practice. It's all in practice. Do several of these applications and you'll be good to go to develop a real-world application. And with that, we will conclude this lecture.